There is a very specific feeling that some of us grow up with. It's sitting too close to the TV on a Saturday morning. It's cereal that's gone slightly too soggy because you forgot about it. It's the volume just being that little bit too loud, but no one's telling you to turn it down yet. It's monsters that aren't just monsters, they're your partner. They live in machines, in networks, in worlds just slightly adjacent to ours. And here's the thing, that entire genre, in terms of books, it's kind of vanished. Not overnight, it just kind of faded and disappeared. Every now and then we get something adjacent to it. A reboot, a nostalgic cash-in, a mobile phone game that wants your wallet more than your imagination, but actual new stories that genuinely love that era are rare. And I think a lot of us just quietly assumed that it just wasn't going to happen anymore. That this kind of story belonged to a very specific window in time. And today I want to talk about an independently published novel that surprised me. Not because it reinvented the wheel, but because it knew exactly what wheel it wanted to be. This is a book that feels like someone grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, monster-taming anime games and decided, I want to write one of those, but for now. My name is Darv James. Welcome to this episode of the Bold Book Geek. Like, sub, tell me what you think in the comments below, as always. And if you want to support this channel, there's Ko-fi, Substack, Patreon, and channel memberships. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about this book that tickled a very specific part in my brain. This book is called Dot Monster Revolution. And fun fact right out the gate, this was written by a YouTuber I actually like, the Did You Know? And yes, this is a young adult novel. You can tell very clearly. But I want to pause on that for a second, because young adult tends to get used like a warning label online. And I don't mean that as an insult, and I don't mean it as dismissal. I mean, this book understands its audience, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else to chase approval. More writers need to do this. Okay, the setup is genuinely interesting. In the wake of a massive cyber attack in the early 2020s, the world does what it always does after a major catastrophe. It builds a new system. A governing body creates a successor to the World Wide Web, a second internet. Tightly controlled, carefully monitored, marketed as safer, better, and more evolved. And on this new internet, 98% of users are paired with an advanced digital companion known as a dot monster. They're not just an app, they're not just a cosmetic mascot, they're a partner. They lean on you, they adapt to you, they grow alongside you. But when a group of teenagers starts uncovering the truth about where these dot monsters really came from, the story pivots, slowly at first, then all at once into this rebellion, resistance vibe, and questions what's underneath the entire genre. Who actually controls the digital world, and at what cost? What I appreciated most about this book is that it knows exactly what it is. This is a love letter to the monster taming story. Not in a cynical way, not in remember this IP, give me money way, but in this really earnest, slightly dorky, deeply sincere way that Digimon did so well. And yes, I'm going to say Digimon a lot here because the DNA is obvious. The partnership, the emotional bonds, the idea that monsters aren't tools, they're mirrors. They reflect fear, loyalty, growth, anger, and doubt. If you grew up on shows like Digimon, Pokémon, Monster Rancher, late-night anime blocks, early 2000s internet culture, this book will feel immediately familiar. And honestly, that familiarity is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but in a way that feels affectionate, not lazy. There's also a little bit of a light cyberpunk vibe running through the story. Not the gritty, neon-drenched corporate noir version of cyberpunk, but this YA-friendly cyberpunk that focuses less on aesthetics and more on systems. Systems of control, systems of surveillance, systems that promise safety in exchange for freedom. Does that sound familiar? This book flirts with themes of internet freedom, who owns digital space, algorithmic authority, dependency on platforms, and I'll be honest, I wish it went a little bit deeper here. The ideas are good. They're handled well. But you can feel the moment where the book chooses forward motion over sitting with discomfort. That said, this is a debut novel, and it's very clearly prioritizing story first, philosophy second. And for its intended audience, that is definitely, in my opinion, the right call. Okay, I'm going to be very openly critical. Some of the characters aren't especially deep. That's not bad, that's not annoying. Some of them are just archetypal rather than characters. You have loyal friends, you have the dominant lead, a figure of authority with hidden agendas. We know this. But here's the thing, that's not a unique flaw to this book. That's baked into so many debuts and so many books at this point, especially, like I said, debuts. This book feels like watching an early Digimon season, where character development happened through situations, not internal monologue. And honestly, there was genuinely something comforting about that. Not every book needs to deconstruct itself. Sometimes you just want to watch a story unfold. In theory, I am not the target demographic for this book. I am not a teenager. I am not I am not a YA reader. But I don't think that disqualifies enjoyment, because reading this felt like watching a Saturday morning cartoon in the best possible way. It was easy to read, moved quickly, didn't ask me to solve some moral philosophy before turning a page. And sometimes you don't want a book that challenges your worldview. Sometimes you want a book that says, hey, sit down, let's have fun for a little bit. And I think that's okay, because sometimes that's what a story should be. There are pacing issues here and there. Some moments fly past, some sections linger a little too long, but honestly, most debut novels, especially ones driven by concept. What matters is the intent. And this book, clearly, it's clear that this intent is to tell a story, celebrate a genre, and invite readers into a world that feels nostalgic without being hollow. What I respected most about this book, Dot Monster, is that it exists. Monster taming stories don't get a lot of love anymore. They're either treated as relics or endlessly mined nostalgia. But this book feels like someone saying, no, there's room for this. There are stories worth telling here, and that matters, especially in indie publishing, when taking creative risk is becoming harder than ever. So I'm going to say this. If you love Digimon, Monster Rancher, Pokémon, hell, Yu-Gi-Oh!, early internet aesthetics, YA cyberpunk with a heart, stories about digital worlds and rebellions, this book is for you. If you're looking for dense poise or literary experiments, probably not. But if you want fun, sincere escapism with a familiar soul, it's worth your time. I'm glad I picked this up. It reminded me that not every book needs to be heavy. Not every read needs to be profound, and sometimes you just want to feel like a kid again, sitting on the floor, monsters on a screen, world still wide open. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts, and if you haven't, maybe just give it a try. And, as always, thanks for watching. I'm Dove James, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And, I'm still annoyed I never got my Digivice in 1999.